Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani, and welcome back to the series on the various ways you're love bombed by the various types of narcissists. Today, we're going to talk about what love bombing looks like with a communal narcissist. So let's set a scene. You meet someone new. Maybe you met them online, maybe you met them through a friend, maybe you just met them out and about. You're interested, they're interested, you're trying to get together and meet. And they say, oh, shoot, I'm so sorry, I can't make that date. I'd love to see you, but that's the day I actually have an event for my nonprofit. We do some amazing world-changing work, and I can't not be there. Or maybe they say, oh, gosh, I'd love to do that time, but there's this meditation class that I run, and I'm helping so many people with it. Or they can't make it because they have to be at their shift at the animal rescue. You're so impressed. You may even ask if, say, listen, do you need another pair of hands? I'd love to come and see what you do. Maybe you go. And you see them at their charismatic best, talking about this cause and how much it matters to them with other people and raising awareness. And you see the group of people that they have mobilized or that they're teaching, and boy, are you impressed. This is someone who wants to help the world or change the world, and obviously they must have a lot of empathy, right? Because they're so focused on helping other people and they have this big vision for the world. From there on, you're hooked. And your relationship may involve maybe travel as they save the world, or posing on social media with them to promote their cause, or going out to the sold-out breathing classes that they teach, or even just helping them with clerical or administrative tasks to keep things going. Red flags? What red flags? I ain't seen any red flags. They're doing so much good for people. Oh, yeah, sure. They get angry with their volunteers, or yeah, they're a little bit prickly with their employees, but the work is so important, right? That's why they're intense. And yeah, sometimes they're angry and manipulative, but that's just the stress of wanting their work to change the world, right? Sometimes they gaslight you, but that's just them being under stress too. Or you recognize that they're so spiritual, that your petty concerns are silly. So that's why they're making light of them. It's not that big a deal. In fact, you need to tough up. They care so much about the world. There's no way could be narcissistic or toxic. Or is there? So before we get to that and really get to what love bombing looks like with a communal narcissist, I'm always going to give you that reminder. January, we start this new healing program. For more information, go to the link in the video notes, click it. You just leave us our email and we'll send you more information so you can register. I have talked about communal narcissism in other series on this channel, and I've mentioned it more than a few times throughout many, many videos. It's a unique sort of form of narcissism, initially referenced by someone named Gebauer, who's a researcher in Germany, and sort of frames narcissism and the pathway to validation, the pathway to validation seeking, rather, for the narcissist, by them getting their validation by doing good things or noble things or seemingly spiritual things. So while it looks like they're doing the good behavior to do good, actually they're doing the behavior to get validation. And while most narcissists are so transparently egocentric and self-serving that we're all very clear that they only do for themselves, for the communal narcissist, they do the do-gooding, humanitarian type, spiritually awakened stuff to get validation from other people. Some people take the attitude of, hey, whatever, if it's raising money for a good cause or raising awareness, who cares if the person doing it is a narcissist? Well, you would care if you were the one in the relationship with that person or working for that person. The entire style of communal narcissism is characterized by a bit of grandiose hypocrisy. To be so worried about whatever vulnerable group, or seemingly worried about whatever vulnerable group they're trying to benefit, but then mistreating those closest to them. The other challenge with communal narcissistic folks is that everyone views them as virtuous and wonderful. So if you are close to them and having to endure their abuse, many times other people will be surprised or not believe you because they view them as so giving and altruistic, which can leave people who are in communal narcissistic relationships feeling very alone and isolated and confused. So that goes back to the original idea of what is this, what is the entire experience of love bombing, what does it look like with communal narcissists? Well, I guess it depends on how much you would be attracted to someone who seems like they care about saving the world and doing good and wants to talk about it. So in other words, lots of people would be vulnerable to communal narcissists. It's easy for many people to get pulled into the good feelings that accompany being with someone who wants to do so much good for so many people. Initially, there may be some grandiose stuff. Maybe, I don't know, you get to go to a fancy fundraising event or a fun fundraising event or a trip to whatever place where they're doing their good, important stuff. But it may not just be this grandiose type stuff. It may just be that the love bombing that looks in this very particular way, like just basically hearing about all the good stuff that they're doing in the world, frankly, that can really be quite dazzling. And there's no way that most people would say, wow, this person is doing so much good and really humanitarian stuff. I better make sure that they're not toxic. Just not what most people think. And so the love bombing can really be tricky because you may actually feel as though you are a bad person for even noticing red flags. After all, this is a person who's doing so much for so many people or is so devoted to the enlightenment of other people through some vaunted spiritual pathway and may be mad because people aren't working as hard as they think they should be for their cause, or not enough people are noticing their good work on social media, so they rage. And they may even get a bit ragey and impatient with you. But that's to be expected when someone is doing something so important, right? And so patterns like justification may arise rather early in this kind of relationship. Over time, you may find that days go up and down on the basis of how much validation they are getting for their saving and their rescuing. It takes a minute to realize that their do-gooding is their way of getting social media validation, for example, and by the time you do, you may be pretty deep in. Another way that communal narcissism can show up is in communities like spiritual kinds of narcissistic presentations. People purporting to be gurus and healers and often purveying and focused on other practices like yoga or meditation or other applications of perfectly good things, but in a savior complex kind of way. You may find that you're drawn into their saviory communities, saviory, not savory, saviory communities, where they can do no wrong. Many people have been quite love-bombed in these spaces, being drawn into the savior rescue narrative, which tends to devolve very quickly. And there is the erroneous assumption that just because someone does good things like meditates or practices mindfulness or does yoga or breath work, that somehow that they're evolved, and of course they could never be narcissistic. Many good people with good intentions engage in these practices, but not all. And people just assume healthy people do healthy things. Communal narcissists in leadership roles in these kinds of communities often take advantage of people who walk into these spaces who can be quite vulnerable, but at a minimum, really do have good intentions for their own growth. And then these people will often get shamed for not following the leader's teachings enough. Many people in these kinds of spaces have gone in looking for answers and believed initially that the leaders in these spaces truly cared about them. That creates a really problematic power dynamic. There have been some, for example, big name players in the yoga world who have faced some pretty serious allegations of abuse and have had some major falls from glory when that got substantiated. And their followers were actually quite vulnerable because they assumed their teacher or their guru had their best interests at heart. The rescuing nature of the communal narcissist can look so empathic, right? We assume it's empathic, so it confuses people. But it's really easy to have empathy from a distance, whether that's for elephants on the other side of the world or children on another continent. The real measure of a person is how they treat the people who are standing right in front of them. And another measure is that a person gives help to other people without expecting lots of credit and admiration and social media likes and effusive praise. Love bombing in a communal narcissistic relationship can be really tricky because it doesn't look like gifts or exciting nights out or the oversharing of the vulnerable narcissist or the hyper control of the malignant narcissist. For many people who have been through narcissistic relationships, communal love bombing can be easy to miss. The idea that someone wants to do good, and it feels sort of awful to question their motives, but please give yourself permission to question them. When it becomes more about them wanting to hear how great they are, or getting irritable when they don't have enough people cheering them on, and perhaps devaluing people who are helping them, or even at times the people they are helping, definitely pay attention to that. We live in a culture where many a narcissist has a very big humanitarian platform. Validation's validation, folks. And if they are doing it, all this good stuff for validation, and it's seeming like validation only, pay attention to that too. The love bombing in a communal narcissistic relationship can get you stuck because, as I said, many people feel guilty about feeling leery about someone who is doing so much good or being so meditation-y or so spiritual teachery. Many a person who has been communally love bombed has said to me, I didn't want to see the red flags. This person seems like they're doing so much good. I felt it made me a cynical, awful person. And I got worried that maybe I had become so hardened that I was the problem, that I was the one who was the problem because I was questioning this person's behavior. I cannot tell you how many times I have talked with someone who claims to be doing so much good in the world and then starts behaving badly with other people around them, or is unkind to their partner or children, and boom, the light bulb goes off. That communal narcissist may claim to be saving survivors of something or disaster victims, but at the same time, they are emotionally abusing the people around them. Always simply pay attention to how a person treats another person. Anybody can claim to be a rescuer or spiritually evolved, but ultimately our good comes from how we treat the individuals in our lives, the people right in front of us. And if you're getting in a relationship with a communal narcissist, you're that person right in front of them. There is something so seductive and powerful about being with someone who feels like they have their moral compass aligned in exactly the right direction. But as with all love bombing, it's always about making sure that the stuff that the narcissist is throwing at you isn't obscuring your ability to see those red flags. If you have any other thoughts on communal narcissists, drop them in the comments, and thanks again.